Hey everyone, welcome back to OCD Recovery's YouTube channel, where today I'm going to talk about one of the biggest lies in all of mental health. Regardless of what you're dealing with, primarily in the anxiety-based disorders and OCD, not so much in the schizophrenias or the extreme bipolar cases. We're talking primarily about the OCD, CPTSD/PTSD world, GAD, panic disorder, and body dysmorphic disorder. And that lie is, if I did not have this disorder, I would be way more successful. And that is more than likely not accurate at all. And I'll explain why it's more than likely not accurate for numerous reasons. What I see working with people all over the world with different countries and every dialect and every shape you could ever imagine. And I can tell you, when you work with humans for long enough, you see a lot of similar traits and patterns among people, whether they're suffering or not. Before I go any further, please subscribe, hit that like button down below. Let me know what you think about this video. Covering this topic is very important because it's very easy to fall into the victim mentality. I had fallen into the victim mentality many, many times, and I did not want to be in the victim mentality anymore, and I had to really work at changing that, etc. So to first start off is this. You are correct in the sense that we do not know what you would be achieving if you didn't have OCD or anxiety-based disorders. But statistically speaking, my favorite term to use, most humans don't achieve a lot anyway. Very few humans on earth achieve large amounts of success, not just in monetary gain, in stable relationships, in long-lasting careers, in long-term patience, on not engaging in instant gratification, whether they have a clear mind or not. So we know that that's not true. Because I know hundreds of people that do not have any OCD or anxiety-based disorders at all. And I'm not talking about general life stuff that can make your heart palpitate for a second here or there. And they have not a lot going on in their lives. And if they do, they're just cruising along. Nothing wrong with that. You could accept that. But it's not this idea that if I didn't have OCD, I would be a major artist, or I would be an actor, or I would have the perfect marriage. That's not true, because most people before their OCD was even chronic, when it was easier to maintain habits in the mild form, they still were not achieving a lot. And I know people that recover from OCD and they achieve a large amount, more than likely larger than they would have achieved if they wouldn't have had OCD, and they still are not achieving as much as maybe they would want to, because success is a relative. It's a perspective driven by the individual, and things get boring and monotonous after a long period of time. When you have sex with the same person for 25 years, it gets boring. You have to work at it to not make it boring. Same thing with having kids after a 30-year marriage. Same thing with working at a business for 40 years. I mean, you hear people say, oh, I've been working here, I've never worked a day in my life. That is absolutely horseshit. It is garbage, and it is childish talk. No matter if you're worth $25 billion, I would say it to someone worth $25 billion, and they would say, no, I've never worked a day in my life. I said, what about that one time where you were sued for 3 months straight and you lost $97 million? You didn't work a day in your life during that? You weren't annoyed at all? It's magic talk. It's Disney World talk. It's just not real. And most people are living in either blind optimism or too much skepticism and pessimism, and there's no mixture of, in my opinion, the most, if you were to use it, I've said this a lot, and it's from Ellis, it's not what I say. It's some mixture of optimism, skepticism, and realism, depending on the situation, more so needed in others. Some situations probably need a little bit more skepticism versus optimism. Optimism might be better in some situations with some realism. It's not a third ratio. So the idea that when you recover, you're going to achieve some great success. Number one, it's simply not true. Number two, most people don't recover, not because they can't recover, because the work required to recover is so great and they don't want to put the work in, or they don't know. So how are you going to achieve great levels of success in any of the major endeavors in your life? Remember, monetary gain is just a small piece of that if you're not doing what's necessary whilst you're suffering, which will supercharge your habits as you move forward throughout recovery. And nowadays with the younger generations, and everyone thinks they're going to be a millionaire by the time they're 25. No, most people will not make over 6 figures ever in their life. Most people can't even afford a house nowadays in most places because inflation is so bad. Most people have $1,000 car payments, and not even just because they're reckless with their money. It's because The costs of cars are so expensive, especially in America. So there's a lot of delusion out there, and all you can do is work with the product. You're a byproduct of the time period you live in. This doesn't mean you can't have goals. This doesn't mean you can't have desires, because most people watch these videos and they see it in a negative connotation. I see it in a very positive connotation. It's accepting the realities of the time period you live in, the economic structures that you live under. What can you do to improve your life regardless of how you feel? That's not how 99.9% of people think. So by a default, most people will not be successful because they don't have that baseline of a perspective on their lives. Most people have never been through hardship, so they don't know how to take that hardship and harness it into learning and then pushing forward. So if you want the best opportunity of, as you say, well, if I didn't have OCD or anxiety, then I would be super successful. Well, then your lot in life is you do have OCD and you do have an anxiety-based disorder, and you will need to apply that right now regardless. So if you can't apply that right now, what makes you think that you're going to be able to apply it day in, day out, even when you don't have OCD? Because you won't. It's easy when you're stuck to say, oh, if I had clarity of mind, I could be so consistent for 20 years straight. No chance. Most people are not consistent for 20 years straight in anything, even with good discipline, 85% of the time. It's still hard to be consistent day in, day out. Do the same thing over and over. Make my sticky note of what I have to do for the day, my must and like, every single day for years. Wake up at the same time every day for years. Go to the gym at 4:30 in the morning every day for years. Ask my wife how her day is going every day for years. Work on my finances, working on my spending habits, working on other aspects of my relationships with my friends and family. Continuously making content day in, day out. You do realize one of the number one reasons that OCD Recovery is arguably the largest online OCD and anxiety platform on earth is because of the amount of relentless content we've put out for years. I mean, between Facebook posts, Instagram, TikTok, everything, articles, I do 5,000 to 6,000 pieces of content a year. That's a lot. Most people don't do 5,000 to 6,000 pieces of content in 50 years, let alone every single year, day in, day out, constantly messaging people, constantly checking out people are doing. I mean, it's the slow grind day in, day out that makes people successful, no matter how you're feeling. And I know it's a repetitive topic I talk about a lot, but it's so important for you to hear it over and over and over and over and over and over again, because you don't know when the person on the other end of the camera or on the call, my one-to-ones or on the webinar services, have any idea when it's just going to click and say, you know what, I have to try something different. But if you're waiting for this idea that you would achieve a lot if you didn't have this, that day is A, never going to come, B, you're doing yourself a disservice, C, you're giving into analysis paralysis, and 4, it's actually not true at all, because most people struggle with pessimism, negativity, instant gratification, short-term hedonistic goals, not putting long-term discipline and consistency in, and they have absolutely no mental health disorder at all. So what makes you think that if you didn't have this and you didn't learn any lessons from it, that would change you to move forward? Because I'm telling you right now, it probably would. Phil at OCDrecovery.com. Let me know what you think. A dose of reality is very important. Many people are not living in reality. The amount of people on calls I have that say, I'm going to do X, Y, Z when I'm done. I'm like, most people don't do X, Y, Z, and they're probably a lot smarter than you and I. They have a lot more resources. They have a lot better, more than likely, genetics in what you're trying to do, and they still don't achieve that. So what makes you think you will achieve it? That doesn't mean you can't have goals and aspirations, but if you have goals and aspirations without reality mixed in there, you just have delusion. Something to think about. Thank you as always. Enjoy the rest of your day.